I did a lot more than manage the shop. And Alan Touchin didn't get to know me, and obviously didn't know about the other jobs I did in my life, including being a ticketing officer at Qantas Airlines at 17 years old. My first job was a kitchen porter. I worked at a Szechuan restaurant in Clapham. My next job after that was... I did a couple of crappy jobs. I did, some reception type work at a club in central London. I did not like it. So then I ended up as the ticketing officer at Qantas Airlines in Kingston. I should commute every day from Earlsfield train station to Surbiton and then walk that little bit the last way rather than getting the train straight to Kingston. Qantas Airlines used to be right near the station. In Kingston, it used to be right on the corner. So you come out of the train station, you look over the left side, there's a big building on the other side of the road that kind of goes around the corner, turns around the corner. That whole corner used to be Qantas Airlines. Then I worked in a bar on Lower Marsh Streets, now called the Camel or Artichoke or something like that. Anyway, do I need to list off all of the jobs I've done? Please feel free to have a look at. I've listed them and written them all down. I put them on my LinkedIn account, but that's been hacked. So I'm going to have to write it all out again at some point. And it's tiresome. To be honest, I find it tedious. But I did more than manage a shop. There was just one job. After I did the managing a shop, I went into body piercing. I also did all the voluntary work I did as well, but I've done quite a bit. One sad event, though, I have to talk about this. It's got nothing to do with the letter, but it's to do with back when my son was living at home with me. And I'd done various things to try to get work. It was really difficult. I got this amazing job. I got an amazing job. I went to Holborn for the job interview. 15 minutes, I had the job. But I had to actually turn it down because there was no flexibility with the start time and I had to do school run. So I did some voluntary work in between to keep me tied over, to keep me in a routine as well. So to keep me into that idea of doing work and, getting my son, getting him to school, going to a job and then picking him up from school after the job. That's what I was keeping myself on that routine by doing voluntary work at the same time. Someone I knew got me a job. And it was a perfect job, actually, for me. But by that point, I was also had been targeted a bit and was kind of starting to have a bit of a meltdown and was triggered at that job. So the person that got me the job is a woman called Laura Faciliotis. My son was still living at home with me and it was flexible. So I could work within the hours that was suitable for me doing school run. I could take my son to school, go to work, and I could finish work in time to pick my son up from school. So it's flexible. I had absolutely zero money when I was starting the job. I mean, very much struggling. I had to make sure there was always food in the cupboard for my son and that he had what he needed. So I tended to go without things like lunch and I would be hungry and stuff like that if I wasn't indoors. Anyway, the job was at a private sports club in Maida Vale. And it was great. Actually, a great position to have. I was a bit nervous because it was a different type of till machine. And there was a different process for using American Express. And I hadn't been in front of a till machine for a while. But my job at first was as a receptionist. I was employed as a receptionist. A meeting had to happen, and they needed somebody to take the minutes at the meeting. It was a small meeting, just 2 people in the meeting, and I was asked on the first day I started the job, I was asked to take the minutes of the meeting. I did such a great job that at the end of the meeting, I was kind of pulled aside and said, I was told by the person who was running the private sports club that I was going to be promoted to centre administrator and have a pay rise. On the first day I was promoted. And I would have done absolutely fantastically there if it wasn't for 2 things. Being bloody hungry, which is not one for me. I can't concentrate when I'm hungry. But the second thing is my colleague at the front desk was very triggering. And a bit kind of, she's young. She was younger than me, but a bit kind of like, oh, I'm better than you type kind of vibe. She was kind of just a bit triggery. And then she actually fully triggered me. And I had a complete freaking meltdown. And I was so embarrassed, I didn't go back. So embarrassed, I didn't go back. But it was a great little job because also the person who was managing the private sports club actively encouraged people to use the tennis courts and to use the squash courts and bits and pieces like that. And it would have been fantastic had I not been triggered and had that meltdown and was so embarrassed to go back there. Even though my son was living at home with me, I didn't have support then either. That was quite gutting because it was a nice little job. And in fact, I was promoted on the first day. First day. My wages increased, promoted, and my wages increased by quite a bit on the first day. So I have to say these things about myself because Anne Touchin, doesn't know me or much about me. She just thinks she knows me. She probably bases a lot of what she thinks about me on the way my sister is. Anne Touchin doesn't know. She doesn't know. Anne Touchin doesn't know that I do actually have a work ethic. Trauma and things that have happened in my life have messed around with it being smooth like other people. Being illegally evicted left, right and centre, losing my daughter, losing my father, all these sorts of different things that happened in my life. But I still tried. But it's really difficult when you haven't got a stable home. Like other people I know, my sister has been in her place for over 20 years. She's never experienced being homeless, ever. Also, what Anne Touchin doesn't know, that I was also studying at the same time. And before I got that, was it before then? Yeah, before I got that job at the Maida Vale Private Sports Club, or the Private Sports Club in Maida Vale, it's not called that. I think it's called the Paddington Sports Club. Before I got that, it's a different manager now. Before I got that, I was doing volunteering work as a centre administrator at Stockwell Resource Centre behind Stockwell Station. And during that time, there was ESOL classes being taught there. So I also did the administration for the teachers on top of the reception work, centre administration work, and the occasional health and safety check. Like checking if fire alarms are working, that sort of thing. head count, making sure you know how many are in the building should there be a issue, so you can know if anyone's trapped, if there's a fire, for example. Hand touching doesn't know me. She makes it look like I've done only one job in my life. Really? When I was bunking off school with my, truancy, when I wasn't in libraries, my dad didn't want me getting in trouble. He knew I was bunking off school. My dad was a lot more proactive in my childhood. And I'm grateful for it. You know, he had people like that would keep eyes out, like messages to get back to him. I've seen your daughter. Okay, what's my daughter up to now? And my dad wouldn't have me just loitering around and getting myself into trouble. So he had me go and help out at his friend's little bric-a-brac and antique shop. So I'd help when deliveries come in, help with organisation. I'd go and get like the teas and lunch and stuff like that. And I learned a little bit about antiques too. So if I wasn't in libraries, I was there. It's just 1 or 2 times I got in trouble. There was 1 or 2 times I got in trouble. Obviously, someone had to call a social worker. And Janet Mackenzie just thought that was what I was doing all the time when I was bunking off school. That is not what I was doing all the time when I was bunking off school. It was 2 times I did that. And I did that as bravado because I was trying to convince the people in the school that I was such a badass. I wasn't going to tell the people at school I was bunking off school so I could study better and work. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I need a hot cup of tea. My tea has gone cold and I'm not impressed with that situation.